And I think that people need to understand that there's a journey that people go through when they are seeking services or trying to get back on their feet, right? Like people say, pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. When I first had Romeo, yes, what I needed was shelter. My rent was $2, food stamps, WIC, and Medicaid. But as I progressed in my career, I was able to get a job. I was able to study because I wasn't stressed about did we have food on the table at that time. Now I'm a master's degree student. Okay, now Duke just recruited me, right? Like to come and lead and be a part of their administration program. Like now I'm on my feet. So maybe I didn't need Medicaid and that then, right? Because I got insurance now. I'm making a decent wage. I just need childcare support.
Mhm.
And eventually, after in about 2015, 16, I didn't need the assistance at all because I was finally able to stand on my feet.
Today, we are super lucky to have one of the most dynamic and beloved leaders in social care, our very own Georgina Dukes. Welcome.
Thanks.
Once of Durham, North Carolina, and now transplant to Georgia, right? Fairly
Yep.
recently. So, for our listeners meeting Georgina for the first time, she is a social justice advocate, leading in a career that inspires social innovation through healthcare and technology. She began her career in healthcare administration at Clemson, where she managed student clinics and emergency department patient access in low-income rural areas. She has a master's degree in health administration from the Medical University of South Carolina. And after graduation, she started work at Duke Health, near and dear to my heart too, Duke grad, where she executed strategies bridging the gap between hospitals and community health initiatives. At Unite Us, Georgina led the team that launched the first statewide coordinated care network, NC Care 360, and launched 6 months ahead of schedule during the pandemic. No biggie, no biggie. She now leads our social care impact strategy. In recent years, Georgina's been a White House Administration Prevent speaker, received the Leaders in Diversity Award, won the 2020 Women in Business Community Outreach Award, and was nominated for Forbes 30 Under 30 in Healthcare, and spoke on an expert panel for the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation on population-specific data gaps in 2021. Now, just a few things you've done in the last couple years.
A big underachiever.
Yes.
Okay.
The worst.
Yeah, the worst. The worst. So, Georgina, this talk is usually around what makes businesses enduring, what creates legacy, and we always start off with the origin story of the individual.
Okay.
Because that usually centers folks, makes them at a younger age think differently, and they're usually challenges or adverse situations where not everybody makes it out of that. And so to kind of set some context for the rest of our conversation and all that you've accomplished so far in your young career, talk us through a little bit of where you grew up, some of the things that you faced that gave you a little bit of a different drive than maybe others that are your same age.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Monetta, South Carolina. So there's a lot of people that have no idea where Monetta is, but small town, no stoplights. We just got Dollar General about 5 years ago, so we talking big money now, okay? So just so you to realize how small that is. And I was raised by a single mom, and my mother, she was a certified nursing assistant. So she's a CNA for hospice. She goes and visits patients and like takes care of them in their home. Me and my brother growing up, I have a younger brother, we thought my mother was a terrible nurse. We just did not understand her patients kept dying. We don't want you to even touch us when we're sick.
Yeah.
We just used to spread rumors around the block like, please don't touch us. But we realized what hospice was, got educated on it, and that was the beginning of my drive in healthcare because she was doing this for people in their last 6 months of life, and she just did it with so much care that they loved her. Their family still stayed in touch with her. So at that point, I just really felt like my purpose in life was to heal people. Like I just really wanted to do whatever I could to heal people in need in the community. So it just drove me. Being raised by a single mama, seeing her work 3 jobs and just really out there, like really trying to make sure everyone was comfortable in their last days. I just knew that's what I wanted for myself, and I felt like that was my purpose here on this earth. And as I grew professionally, personally, I became a single mom myself, and I had to experience what it was like to navigate Medicaid, navigate food stamps, navigate trying to get on Section 8. And I just really realized that in order to heal people, you really got to take care of them in their homes. You can't just throw them in the hospital and expect them to get better after the doctor puts a Band-Aid. They still got to go home to just a trash environment. So until we can heal people there, like they're never going to be fully healed. So I think that's also how I kind of transitioned and fell in love with the mission of Unite Us, because I experienced this and I knew if I really was going to live my purpose and heal the community, that I had to do something different than being in those four walls within the hospital. I had to get outside of that type of being if I really wanted to do the transformation, and I felt like I was called to do at a young age. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. But let's dig into that a little bit of your experience of like navigating those benefits. And I think, you know, we talk a lot about that here at Unite Us of, oh, we're trying to connect people to social care and why it's important and prioritizing social care at the same priority level as healthcare. But not this isn't a Unite Us pitch. This is a real world example. Walk me through you at that moment in your life, being a single mother, trying to navigate those resources. And it's not just the government assistance pieces. There's other components, like just for folks that maybe haven't experienced that or don't know at like a root level, kind of just get into the weeds of that a little bit.
Yeah. So I had my son Romeo in December 2011, the Friday of final exams week. No plan, just had him. Poof, there. And like,
Poof.
what am I going to do?
Where were you? Like, tell us where you were at that point in your.
The storm came down.
Yeah. Where
I was at Clemson University.
Uh-huh.
I was in my junior year, just finished my last exam, and it was actually called Set Psychology. Finished that exam and had to go straight to the hospital to give birth. So this was right in between Christmas break, right? So had them, and professors emailed me saying, you should take time off. Like, you got to get a plan. There's no way you can really focus on school and all these things. And I was just thinking, yes, they're right. Right? Like, I don't have a plan. I have this newborn child. I don't have a plan. So I went home that Christmas break with no plan, just thinking I wasn't going to return. But I began like Googling, doing research. This is going to sound really cheesy, but I heard the poem Invictus and it like motivated me. I'm like, ooh, the last stanza was, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. And I just began researching and Googling hours on hours with this newborn crying baby. Just like, how do I get food stamps as a student? Like, is there a process? And there is. If you work part-time on campus, you can get food stamps, but you only qualify for $300 worth with a dependent. So I had my job as like a student assistant at our student clinic on campus. I immediately went back to the campus like during that Christmas break or to the local DSS, and I found for food stamps. Long application, so intense, but it took about maybe 3 weeks to get that set up. Then Medicaid, you're already enrolled in Medicaid if you are a low income pregnant mom, but how do I keep that going? So I had to fill out additional paperwork once the child was born. That was a completely different office. It wasn't Department of Public Health. It was a completely different office I had to go to for Medicaid. Again, that was another week spending back on campus before school started in January, just trying to complete that application. Then there's WIC, Women, Infant, Children. So completely different process at the Department of Public Health. You have to prove that either you're breastfeeding or you're not, so you can get this fruit vouchers. And if you aren't breastfeeding, you get all of this tons and tons of infant formula. So back in that time, 11 years ago, I chose that route. So I just didn't breastfeed because that meant I got more money from WIC or whatever, gaming the system, I guess. But it was such an intense process. So when January came around for us to start school, I was able to start, but I still didn't have childcare and all that situated. So I had the Medicaid filled out, I had the SNAP, I had the WIC, but where in the world was Romeo going to go once it was time for me to go to class? So that's when I had to lean on my village. Thankfully, I was in a sorority, and I had 17 sorority sisters on campus, and they all signed up for shifts to watch Romeo while I went to class during the day, and then in the afternoon while I worked at the clinic and when I worked third shift at the emergency room. So I just had this village of people outside of family that was about a few hours away on campus to help me. But I still had to navigate this complex system, make sure I had food, make sure I had gas, make sure Romeo was taken care of so I could finish school on time.
To talk about Romeo's impeccable timing. Seriously, during the break, imagine if you're in the middle of your semester
Right.
and that happened.
Yes.
And then you're trying to navigate that while also at school. That is like a lot of people are dealing with that on a daily basis.
Every day.
And also the support system you had.
Mm-hmm.
You're part of the sorority. A lot of people also don't have that. We hear a lot from healthcare entities and others that a lot of finger pointing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But when we talk about social care and we talk about addressing social determinants of health, it really does take that village.
Mm-hmm.
And so, talk us a little bit through of how that experience and then getting through Clemson and set you on your path that you're on right now.
Yeah. So I think for me, when I was at Clemson, I think the thing is that they saw it was on the student. Like this wasn't an experience that was normal. So there are so many mothers that had children before me, but they didn't, again, that impeccable time, and they didn't have it at the right time. They may not have had the village. But for me, because I had that, I really started to observe like all of these things that are going wrong. Like if we really want to increase the amount of students graduating, the amount of people of color graduating, we have to do more to support them. So at that point, I really started getting involved with Clemson. I started this whole campaign. Of course, you know me, just weird. Started this whole campaign called...
I don't know if that's the word I would use. It's motivated,
actually,
maybe.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let's pause on that. We're going to come back to that, the weird Georgina here in a second.
I'm like, I just had to do something. And I started this campaign called Back Off Baby, I'm in School. It had this like little egg and these little sperms. And it was like, back off, baby, I'm in school. Yeah. And the egg had a little cap on it. Because I wanted to like talk about teenage pregnancy. I wanted to talk about the resources needed. And I was so tired of people dropping out. I mean, even my professors encouraged me to drop out. So we just started writing like lists of resources that students could have if they ran into the same situation. If you were a young mom or a young father, because football players, a lot of them were fathers. They just don't want to admit it. But a lot of them were fathers. We want to give them resources for their children. And so that kind of work started motivating me really, but I thought healthcare was the way to do that, right? I thought people are coming in the clinic for their prenatal vitamins or STD checks and all of that. If we want to connect them to resources, we want them to stand on their feet, we got to do this here, because that's what I would have wanted. I was just thinking about what I wanted at the time. And so I just kind of let that fuel me to like go move to Charleston and like go to get my master's. And I did that same thing there. I was working at the Medical University of South Carolina. People were coming in and out of the hospital with so many needs, still trying to figure it out. And me, myself, I was only getting paid like $10 an hour then. I still was on Medicaid. I still was on food stamps, trying to navigate it. And there was still this like broken system, like people, and we're just giving them sheets of paper coming in and out of the emergency room, just hoping, empty hope that it'll work out. And it just was so frustrating because I myself knew it doesn't work unless you got hours and hours of time in a village to help you put into work. So I just think over the course of my career, you can see all these different things I've tried, and I just kept feeling like it was falling flat and getting frustrated with this system that continues to put people in further and further in systematic depression and systemic poverty.
Yeah. And of course, being you had this time at Clemson, but being a mom doesn't stop.
No,
right? It's just it's a marathon, and so you're always thinking about that, right? And that's all. It's always a part of your job, and when you're doing it alone, it's those are all factors you have to continue to think about. So, helping people at a time in their life versus helping them throughout their journey, right? And like, talk to us a little bit about how you think about those two things. Like there are these intense periods where people need an intense amount of help, but it doesn't stop,
Right. Yeah, and I think that people need to understand that there's a journey that people go through when they are seeking services or trying to get back on their feet, right? Like people say, pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. When I first had Romeo, yes, what I needed was shelter. My rent was $2, food stamps, WIC, and Medicaid. But as I progressed in my career, I was able to get a job. I was able to study because I wasn't stressed about did we have food on the table at that time. Now I'm a master's degree student. Okay, now Duke just recruited me, right? Like to come and lead and be a part of their administration program. Like now I'm on my feet. So maybe I didn't need Medicaid and that then, right? Because I got insurance now. I'm making a decent wage. I just need childcare support.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, after in about 2015-16, I didn't need the assistance at all because I was finally able to stand on my feet. But it took me working with those case managers, making sure I had the connection to resources I needed through that entire journey, and them honestly believing in me, not seeing me as this welfare queen or this person that's just going to keep getting recertified on Medicaid every year. They were helping me too stand on my feet so that I can get off and be a success and be what I wanted to be for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to weird Georgina real quick. Seriously, you call it weird. I think others would call it unique, or super driven. Do you think that's something that you learned or was just innate in you?
I feel like it's just the way I'm born. Like I think a part of it is nurture and a part of it is nature. And I think the part that's nurture, like the way that I was raised, being in a small town, you have to do everything. Like I saw my mom and my grandma being the church mother, the nurse, the school bus driver, the cooker, the person that started her own grocery store. Like they did everything and they were one person. And I'm like, I like seeing that, and those are powerful women like my grandmother and my mother. That's me. Like, how I'm going to sit and just do one job? No, I'm going to do 10, 20 different things because, like, that's just who I am, the jack of all trades, the master of none, but the jack of all trades. So I think that nurture part, seeing that, and it's just who I am. Like, I feel like I have to solve a problem. I have to help people heal. Like, it's everyone asks about, like, what your superhero power would be. You know, I love Marvel. It was always from when I was born, just I want the power to heal people. Like that's what I just feel like my calling is.
Let's talk a little bit about like the process to be selected for the first thing that brought you to Duke. The selection process there that you went through, where many applicants, they only accept 2.
Yeah.
Georgina was one of them. Let's talk about that piece and then get into, you know, as we were trying to recruit you away from Duke, what they maybe said to Esther's point about coming.
All
to
right, so
Unite Us.
how'd you end up at Duke? Let me synthesize that.
Okay, well, so when you get a master's in health administration, they strongly encourage. Some programs require that you do a residency or an administrative fellowship. So we all were strongly encouraged to do it. I knew I wanted a 2-year program because, again, weird Georgina, I'm like, if I only do a 1-year program, that means I got 6 months to learn. In the next 6 months, I'm going to be focused on getting a job. I got a child. So I needed 2 years to just try to soak, at least 18 months to soak in so that then I could apply for a job. So I applied to 17 places. 17 fellowship programs all up the East Coast. I wanted to be driving distance to home because, again, I was a single mom. 17 programs. I was a beast when it comes to writing. Y'all know my writing. I really am a great person, a great writer. I can write.
Great person too.
Yeah, you really are. You're a great writer.
I can illustrate anything.
Yes.
So when I submitted my application to those 17 places, 16 people asked me for a first round interview out of 17.
Wow.
So that was like great. I was like, ooh, I'm in it.
Who are we gonna shame?
Who is this
that
one?
did not accept you?
That's where I'm writing them
We're
a
gonna-
letter.
We're gonna
They
do
were
this
in
publicly.
Philadelphia,
Right.
so it was
They're
a
in Phil-
hospital in Philadelphia.
Oh, I know it's UPenn. That tracks.
So that
it's
was
them.
the one that
coming
did
for
accept
you.
me. So I went the first round. The first round for every interview is phone interviews. So that 16, it went from 16 to 2 after the phone interview. So that tells you how I sounded at the time. That was way before Georgina at Toastmasters. I was country as hell. So I already
Well,
know.
so after this, we'll talk about unconscious bias. And then,
But it just didn't work out. Those 16, a lot of the feedback, some of them give you feedback. They said, like, we feel like you're really Southern. We feel like you're really rural. Or you use slang.
Are you
when
serious?
You spoke. Yeah. So that's the feedback they got. They give you feedback, which is great.
But those are the words. And that's the kind of stuff they said to you. Or like
slang.
A professional interview that they said. Not your qualifications, not like...
No, it's all about fit, I think, too, at that point. And
yeah.
I'm just a Southern rural girl. So it went down to 2, and it was between Carolina's Healthcare, which is now Atrium, and Duke. So I go on site, and it was just, both were amazing, but it was just something about Duke. You know, Kevin Sowers was the leader at the time, super woke and like super understanding of everyone's situation. And they tell you after the interview, like you get to the airport, if you don't have a call by the time you get to the airport, we don't want you. And I just remember sitting at the airport. I'm like, I'm here. They don't want me. So I just was so sad. And then I get a call from a 919 number, and they were like, we accept you.
Yeah,
and
Durham,
I just immediately, in Durham. And they said, we accept you. Would you please? And I just immediately said yes. I didn't even try to negotiate. I was just like, yes, thank you. And then I called my mentor, and we cried at the airport. But that's how I got in. It was just a really extensive process, but it was just the right fit. Like they got me, I got them, and I just knew it was the beginning of where I was going to learn a lot for my career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you're at Duke. Okay?
Yes, I'm at Duke.
You're really
after that.
You love it there. This is your dream fit, and then Taylor shows up.
Yeah.
Did that happen?
Well, somewhat like that. So I finished the fellowship. They hired me on to be a strategic services associate. So what you are is essentially like the chief of staff to the VP. My main job was to make sure patients who got readmitted or kept coming back to the ED to figure out what the clinician did wrong. So I was having these weekly sessions with nurses, doctors, like, okay, this patient keeps coming back or they got readmitted. Walk me through your process. What were you doing? And what I realized is that they were doing everything. Like, I just felt like a bully just being mean to them. Like, what are you doing wrong? These people are intelligent. They're smart. They have years and years of education. And they were doing everything they could. And that patient just kept coming back. And what I found out is it was nothing that we were doing in Duke. It was what that patient was experiencing outside. So I just really was like, I'm not doing enough here. Like, I'm not making the impact I need because they're going to keep coming back. So talked to my boss. I said, I really am thinking about transitioning outside the hospital because I want to make a greater impact. And he told me to like Google dream jobs and like write my dream job description, which I did. I came back to him and I said, the JD's title, I didn't know the title at the time, but it says keep patients out the hospital. And everything listed on there was like address social determinants of health, connect them to resources. And it was like 2 weeks after that, Taylor LinkedIn's me and was like, hey, we just got a contract in North Carolina. Would you be interested in learning more? I don't think I responded immediately because I was like, spam. But after doing research and I saw the announcement for NC Care 360, I'm like, oh my God, that was the guy that, okay, yeah, like I want to learn more. And I the first interview was with Mikey. The second one was with Mikey and Dan. That was a tough one. Okay, let me tell you. Dan was like, how do I know you won't steal our idea and make it your own business? I'm like, I don't know how to do that, but okay. And then
all right, some coaching for Dan.
And then I think my last interview was with Taylor, and it was such a good fit. Like, and I was just like, please choose me. I will come. And then the rest is history.
That's exactly right.
See, we knew something.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you knew a lot. Yeah.
Do you remember what number you were?
I think I was 42.
It's a great number.
42.
That is a great number. That's my number in college.
Oh, okay. 42.
It's fate.
Yes, fate. So that's how I got here. And manifestation mixed with just right timing.
But let's talk about that risk analysis, because that's a big part of it too, is the kind of choices you have, right? When you know that your son's relying on you and you're thinking about, like, it's not just about what's best for your career. It's not just about you, and it's not just about taking this job that may seem exciting. You've got all these other variables you're thinking through, and it's a different equation, right?
That was literally going to be my question too. Like, how? How
Yeah.
did you make that choice from where you were coming from,
Mm-hmm.
the experiences that you had? Like, and on all accounts, most people would have been like, I made it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
made it.
Yeah.
And then you moved away from that. Like, how? Kind of walk through that.
But as tactically, it was a pros and cons list, and the pros was who. Because I just felt like who would turn down an opportunity to change the entire state? Like, have you talked to Taylor? Like, when he trying to sell you on something? Like, he was like, we're about to change the state,
Yeah.
and North Carolinians everywhere. And I'm like, yes, like that's exactly what I want to do. But honestly, I just thought about the pros. Like, I could stay at Duke, very prestigious organization. I could be safe. And at the end of the day, if this company turns over in a week, I can come right back.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
always
That's right.
call them, say,
Yeah.
hey, take me back, and they would. But I needed to go and fly, and I really believed in the mission. I really believed in the people that I talked to, and I just felt like this was really going to work. That's what I believed.
Tell us a little bit. We like to ask people, leaders, what like their decision-making process is like. Are you a pro and con list writer always?
Nope.
Are you?
She's never prepared.
Are you?
Ever.
Are you like? Does it come from an emotional place? I heard you say that, like, Taylor obviously made a big impression on you, but then you still sat down. You logic through it. You had tactical things. Tell us about,
Yeah.
That is a lie, by the way. She's always over prepared. We've been working on her just being
I
from the
know,
hip a
I
little bit.
can't- I write everything down. I'm definitely a pros and cons list person. And when I'm making a decision, like, I always have like pros at the top, cons, and I write that down. But then I do instinctually go with my gut. Like, what am I feeling? There are times where the cons list was really far down, and I still was like, this feel right, and I'm Georgina. Like, I'm gonna figure it out, So that's what I do.
So
Like,
you reshuffle the list.
yes.
Like, this con's actually a pro because.
Yes, because it's a problem I can
Yeah.
solve. Like, that's kind of how I think.
Oh, I
of
can
it.
totally see that.
Like, I just think that's one of the things that I loved about the uncertainty of coming to Unite Us. And I just remember the first week at Unite Us, I just remember feeling so scared. And I don't know if I told y'all this, but before in a previous conversation, but the first week there was a storm. Everyone came down. Taylor, Mikey, everyone came down. Storm, schools were closed in North Carolina if there's a storm. So I just immediately freaked out. Like, I'm trying to make a good impression. I came in, and Taylor was there, and he was like, wait, where's your son? I saw on the news that school, like, everything shut down. I said, I found this random check-in place. And then he pulled me to the side. He was like, you never do that. Like, we hired you because we wanted all of you. We accepted all of Georgina. I knew you was a single mom. You told me that. Like, you bring your child in here if you have to, or stay home or whatever. But don't put them somewhere. And I was like, wow. Like,
Yeah.
they care about all of me. Like, I've had to hide Romeo for so long just to climb the corporate ladder. And I'm at a company that appreciates me for being everything, like being a mom. And so that next day I brought him in. Taylor took a picture and put him on his Instagram. I'm like, oh my God. But it's just like moments like that. I'm like, this is divine alignment. Like, I knew my gut reaction was right.
Like, just to say, I mean, what I hear you saying with this is, yes, it's hard, but what you will have to be is you're an excellent internal leader, but you're also an external leader. And like, how do you think about sort of those external leadership qualities, and how are they different from being an internal leader? And how did you develop those,
Yeah, I think externally you have to be able to relate. One, you have to be like charismatic.
Right.
I feel like external leaders, when you are a community engagement manager, you present an external, people have to literally want to be your friend. They want to be around you. They want to come to your events. It's something about you that attracts them, even for them to open your email. So that's number one. But once you get them in the door, you have to empathize with them and understand their situation. And I think that was like one of the hardest skills for us to learn as like one of the first CEMs on the ground is I'm talking to a housing agency and they're going to say, I'm not like this food pantry you just talked to, or I'm not like the housing agency down the street. So being an external leader with them is, okay, tell me about like how your organization works then if you're not like this one, or oh, I understand. So when someone comes in and just immediately walk them through, feel like you're listening and doing a workflow plan with them because they're not used to this. What tech company ever went and showed up at this little church's food bank and said, let me help you operationalize this and get more efficient with your systems? They don't do that. So they as an external, they just feel so appreciated that you are even willing to sit down and help map this out, because you want to improve the community. You want people to get help. So I think those are the things as an external leader, that empathy, that those listening skills, along with the charismatic presenting and leadership. But you really got to be able to empathize, listen, and help solution with them and map out what is the right way to do this, because they need it. They need it and they know it, but it's up to you to capture that and disarm them so that they'll let you in so you can do that work.
All right. What do you like to do when you're not doing one of your 9 jobs?
Okay.
When you're not taking care of Romeo, when you're not I'm trying to think
Hold
about
on. Can we
other
talk?
things.
Can we talk about Romeo's business real quick?
Oh.
I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
I want to talk about t-shirts.
Yeah.
Walk me through it.
All right, you have a mini entrepreneur, yeah?
Yes, Romeo, my son, he's definitely a mini entrepreneur. Every summer, I just try for him to do a project because he's staying home. He's just, you know how kids are. They just lazy when they be home. So I'm like, what can you do? And in summer 2019, he was really into marine biology, like orcas, sharks, and all of these things. And so I had the Canva app, and he started creating shirts, like flyers and different things. And he made a shirt called Orcas Eat Sharks. And he was like, Mom, I really want to sell this shirt. I'm like, okay. We went to a child like business fair that they have, they have those locally in a lot of communities. And he was like, look, they're selling shirts. Mom, I really want to sell this shirt. I'm like, okay. So we printed Orcas Eat Sharks on a bunch of shirts and some other sayings that he made. And that Orcas Eat Sharks sold. Like, he sold probably about 500 shirts.
Holy cow.
In the summer. And that was
Yeah.
a lot of money for little Romeo. Like, he just,
Yeah.
and he was like, wow, they really like my shirt. So every summer he starts back up and tries to sell the Orca Eat Sharks shirts. He prints them and goes to like little community fairs and things like that. But he really likes designing stuff and making shirts. He's not into marine biology as much anymore, but he really loves like graphic design and making videos and movies. Like, that's his thing
creative.
now.
But
Yeah,
you want to talk
yeah.
about end to end. This wasn't just shirts. The packaging it came in.
Oh, yeah, he wanted the shirt. I asked him how he wanted to send the shirt. He said, I wanted to look like a pizza box.
Yeah.
It's just a kid, like,
Yeah.
so we found one of those boxes that open like a
Yeah.
pizza box. And then we made a little cartoon of his face to put on the front called The Joy of Romeo. And that's how we sent it. So it was just, he took full creative control of it, and it really did well, and it's been doing well almost every summer.
It was
so,
awesome.
yeah.
Awesome.
It was awesome.
Okay, so now we can get to my question. What do you like to do?
Outside of work and
Yeah.
being a mom, right now I'm just so heavy in planning weddings. So
oh,
I'm
tell
trying
us
to
about
think-
that. Yeah, tell us about that. What's going on?
Wedding planning process. We are less than 5 months away. We just started counseling, and it's really good. Like, I can't believe I'm getting married.
Yeah. Same.
And it's like to learn how to be from like a single mom just grinding to like, oh, I have a partner
yeah.
and an adult, and I don't have to do everything. Like,
Yeah.
I can like take the cape off for a little bit, and it's just a beautiful thing. He's a great partner. We just moved to Atlanta, and it's been amazing being in a city that's so vibrant. Like, I can just drive to the Georgia Dome in 10 minutes or just be in the country and go fishing. It's just an amazing time just to be going through this wedding planning process and understanding what it's like to have a partner to like live life with. It's just, I really enjoy it right now.
All right. And tell us about the move to Atlanta. How do you, I guess, like, how did you end up there? What are you finding that's different? What do you dislike about it?
How was he liking his job?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason I moved to Atlanta is because my fiance Travion accepted a job offer there. He's a structural engineer, and he loves it. Like, he comes home and he's telling me about, okay, look, I'm designing this with terracotta tiles. I don't know what that means, but he's just really excited because that's a heavier tile or sustainable buildings and stuff. So that's why we moved there, and it happened really quick because they start school a lot quicker in Georgia than we do in Durham. But it's just been an amazing process because the schools are so amazing there. They have houses that choose the child, like Harry Potter.
Oh, really?
Yes. So
what's
Wait,
Romeo's
hold on,
house?
Hold
Yeah.
on,
Oh my God.
hold on. What?
Yes, that's all. I'm like, yeah, it's amazing. And I was like, Romeo, they said a house is going to choose you. He was like Harry Potter. I'm like, yes. Can we please come volunteer? He was like, as long as you don't say anything, you can come. So we volunteered. But the House of Amistad, that's the name of the house, chose them. Their color is red, and their thing is like the night. Their symbol is the night, but they have all of these things around a house that chooses them. And it's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And he's playing lacrosse. It's just been great moving there, getting the more opportunities. The school system is amazing. So yeah, I really like it. We just got to get our house sold in Durham. So
Yeah.
hopefully we get an offer or a close on it soon.
When we talk about like brands,
Okay.
and growing, we have a big focus of we're a generational business at Unite Us. In order to have longevity and those things, do you think it's a product or do you think it's the people?
Oh, the people. I think you can have a great technology, but I feel like 75%, especially with a generational company like Unite Us, people join because of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got community engagement managers that educate people that live in that community that make them join. You have like leaders who speak externally that get like these funders excited about it, that help them see the big picture. Like, yes, you have a great technology, but it's all about the people. Like I always say, it's the sizzle, not the sausage.
Yeah.
Right? When you eat, like you want that sizzle when it's coming to your plate, and the people of Unite Us are the sizzle. It ain't just the.
Listen, thank you so much for doing this with us. It's been great chatting on air, off air, whenever. I always love talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Georgina, I mean, I think going back to weird Georgina, I think that is a wrong classification. I think that is you being humble, but you are a force to be reckoned with. You're super, super talented, obviously super, super passionate, and that's the difference maker. And so I think from everybody here at Unite Us, I think we're extremely grateful that you, one, chose to spend your time here, and two, continue to kind of push everybody, be it community engagement managers or now creating these alliances with organizations across the country. Again, we're just very, very grateful, both for being here at Unite Us, but also joining us on this podcast and sharing your story. I think it's something that everybody's going to resonate with, and hopefully we can get as many ears and eyeballs on this as we can. But again, thank you so much.
Thank y'all. I really appreciate it.